Hey everyone, I'm Anso and we're back in the shop. I'm so excited about this episode where we will have a tag along for the Sonic project. The Sonic is my newest custom design. The Sonic was developed right here on this channel. You can follow the full episodes here. Last episode we went from drawing to the first mock-up. Today we start working on the first final knives. The Sonics that we will build in this episode will be available for my Launch 15 online knife show in August. When you're watching this, that was actually last week. So today you actually have the option to order your Sonic now by clicking the link below. I've been putting together a batch of Sonics where I've matched parts with materials, and let's go and have a look in production. Så velkommen til saunaen. Oi! We are here in the Anso shop and we actually at one of the most important places in the shop. This is my material cabinet, and this is also where I find some inspiration for my custom builds. This is where I can mix and match materials. This is where I'll store these weird pieces of G10 or carbon fiber that I may have brought around for the last 25 years. Maybe they'll never see a knife, maybe they will, but it's all in here. Let's dive in. For the Sonic build, the handle material requires some structural strength. If you look at the cross section here, the edges of the handle are relatively thin, which puts some requirements on the choice of materials. So G10 is an excellent choice, carbon fiber, excellent choice, metals is an excellent choice. Some other materials are not necessarily the right choice. Some micatas have a tendency to flex a little bit. Other micatas are super stiff and it would be a fine choice. But those are some of the thoughts that goes through my head when I sort out the different parts for a specific build. We're back in the shop. Here I've laid out the parts for 6+1. The +1 is the mock-up here. I have a pretty solid feeling that this will turn into a finished version that will end up in my pocket, but let's see. What we are diving into here is a little bit scary for me because this will be the first time that I will start working on parts for the Sonic. As of now, I've only put the rough fitted parts together. I fitted the lock, but that's about it. Now I need to go in and dive into finishing each part, figure out exactly what kind of finicky tricks I need to do to handle, say, the backspacer surface here. Since last episode, we actually added a little detail here. Let's get close on this one. If you have seen the Zero, you'll notice the reference here. This is the back of the backspacer. You'll see here it's installed here. So this is a little jimping or checkering, if you will. Doesn't really serve a huge purpose other than it gives some kind of traction. It gives some kind of tactile feel when you rub your thumb down here. And it's those small details that I just really, really love in my work. Details that I don't necessarily put a lot of attention on outwards. I put a lot of attention inwards. Does that make sense? I don't know. What I mean is, I put a lot of thought behind every single little details. I don't necessarily announce it. I'd like my knives to have these small details that once the knife is in the owner's hands, maybe down the line they will see a little engraving on the inside or stuff like this. And I know from myself that discovering things like that, small Easter eggs or small details, just brings me a lot of joy. I like to put in details like that and not really mention it and let the end user figure them out for themselves. So here we have the 6 knives lined out with the variations of materials that I picked for these specific 6 sonic builds here. I have the backspacers in different materials. I have titanium, I have bronze, I have G10, I have zirconium. Match that with the titanium frames here, except this one is actually black Damascus. I can't wait to check that out. One thing that I actually really enjoy about the Sonic here is the handle. In this case, it's bronze. That won't be matched with the black Damascus. Maybe it looks good, maybe it looks crap. Matching this with carbon fiber will be spot on. But how cheeky is this, that you take a rather expensive material like black Damascus and then mill all of it away, only to replace it with something less fancy. So the frame is still full black Damascus, but on the outside you will only see the bolster area here.
Why did you do that?
Because I can. Why do what I do if I don't follow instincts like that? But I love the fact that I can take a super high-end material and then don't show it. I love that.
It's very Jens.
I think so, yeah, I think so. Here in this state, it just looks like titanium on titanium, but it's actually titanium frame with a black Damascus handle. And once finished and heat colored, I think that would look absolutely fantastic. Here we're back to one of my go-to passion, and that is knolling. I just love sorting out parts like this, lining them up. And it gives me some kind of connection with the project while just arranging around the parts here. The next material that I chose is one of my favorite materials, period, and that is micarta. And in this variation, it's brown canvas micarta. I've used maybe not tons of micarta in my time as a knife maker, but definitely close to it. And it has this warm feel, even though it's a synthetic. It has a beautiful look, it ages well, and I felt it was the right choice for one of these Sonics. Orange G10 is also one of my favorites. G10 is kind of a step back when you look at fancy materials, but orange G10 is just one of those materials that just pops. So match this with a G10 backspacer, and I will add orange G10 pivot rings here. I think that will be a spectacular combination of materials. Carbon fiber is just one of those materials that I really like. It's kind of an upgrade material. It's super expensive. It's difficult to machine. It ruins end mills like you wouldn't even know. And it's just a synthetic. Carbon fiber is one of those materials that I feel goes equally well with dress clothes or jeans. And in this build, I'm still debating what color of the titanium I will put in here, but this should definitely get a zirconium backspacer. The black, cool, cold look of the zirconium mixed with the pattern of the carbon fiber. I think that will look stellar. Here I have a set of bronze scales, and I just love how bronze will patina over time. It will reflect the use the knife has been through. It will reflect the user. However this will be carried, that will show in the patina. When I make knives or tools and use bronze or brass or copper, I always give it a pre-patina. So I will start out the process, and that look will remain intact until the owner will start using the knife. Maybe it will just build on top of that, maybe it will change completely. But that is one of the things that I really enjoy about a material like bronze, opposed to titanium that will more or less stay as when it left my shop. The bronze will just age over time. Maybe it will turn green from use depending on the climate, humidity. Maybe it will just remain really, really nice and crisp. Or maybe it would look like it's been at the bottom of the sea for 1,000 years. That's one of the reasons why I chose bronze to be on one of these 6 builds. Here we have fat carbon. Fat carbon is a carbon fiber material that is relatively new to the knife scene. It's been around, I'd like to say around 5 years, maybe longer, maybe shorter. This is the variant called dark matter red, which is a mix of carbon fiber threads where you have red resin or red fibers mixed with the black. And I've been using this material for a while in different colors. And what happens once you bead blast this, it will show some kind of structure and it will highlight the colors. And once you oil the scale, this will just be beautiful.
So Jens, why are you hand sanding this knife when you usually use the maximizer and the other belt grinders?
Yeah, well, in this case I would usually use my my disc grinder here, but the construction I did for the Sonic with the integrated bolster and integrated lanyard hole on this side and the clip island on this side means that this surface here can't be ground any other way but by sanding it. I'm using these die maker stones. That is an excellent way to remove small burrs and imperfection in the surface, and that is just needed. We did this completely flat surface on the disc grinder, and now I'm working the surface here where I can't access it with any machines. The most important part of the knife is obviously the blade. In the mock-up prototype here, the blade is RWL34. This is not a new fancy steel. It's a high-end steel in my opinion. It's a super performing steel in my opinion. Why change in something that works, right? That is one of my dogmas. I've been using RWL34 for 25 years at least. RWL34 is not a new steel. It's actually a modern version of ATS34, which I also love. That is a really old steel, but it's a great user steel, and so is RW34. If it was good enough for Bob Loveless, it's probably good enough for you. In this process, I use my maximizer with a super fine grit belt to just touch every single smooth surface to remove the tiny tool marks that are left behind from the CNC. And by doing so, this gives a super crisp and clean surface. These are super tight tolerance parts, so I need to be super careful not grinding off too much here. So I turn the speed down to almost a stall and then just slightly touch it with a 320 grit belt. The blades here are ready for the build. They have all been heat treated, they have all been surface ground, and they're now ready to fit the lock. They're now ready for all the rest of the handwork that is required to build an Anso custom. They all look the same here, but here we have 3 blades in RWL34. We have a blade in Takifo Sanmai. That is one of the, I love using Takefu Sanmai steel. In this case, it's the VG10 variant. I think it's a beautiful steel and it's a great user steel. Here we have dense twist Dama steel and here we have Dama core. Both of these steels are excellent user steels and they look good to boot. I think that's a pretty good combination.
All right, so Jens, where are we in the process?
So I've been working on the parts for this knife for a little while now, and I'm working on fitting the lock, and hopefully this is the last time I'm putting these parts together to test if the lock is fitted properly. So fingers crossed. So the tolerances in a knife like this in my shop is within a few hundredths of a millimeter. I guess that's a thou or a couple of thou in imperial freedom measurement, if you will. I've heard that quite a bit. It's not the tolerances you would find in a watch or anything like that, but still within my reasonable limited skills, it's pretty high tolerances. One of the super interesting aspects about introducing a new model like the Sonic is that I need to get to learn how to build this. Of course, I can draw on all the knowledge I have from having built folders for the past 20 some years, but every single folder that I put out is just a little different from the previous model. So while I can draw parallels to some of the processes, I still need to learn how to build this one. And it always fills me with excitement when I have a project ahead of me, like on the Sonic. Building 6 in a row is really a great way to get to learn it slowly. So I can't wait to have time to just build all these 6 folders for the Launch 15. So one of the things that I look for is the lock engagement. The Sonic features, like most all my liner locks or frame locks, a hardened steel insert for the frame, and it meets the blade. And I like to have a engagement of about 2/3 of the lock inserts width, and it seems pretty accurate here. Then I will test for lock rock and see if I fine-tuned the setup on my grinder or if it needs a little adjustment. I think it's pretty close to being perfect here. I envision the end user, how he or she will feel opening this knife. It needs to feel good. It's like opening a door on a Mercedes. It needs to sound good, it needs to feel right. So it's a combination of feeling, listening, and a gut feeling of, is this how it should be? Does it feel right? If it feels right, it's probably right. I gauge my knives against my knives, really. So I have a certain way that I build my knives, and it wouldn't make sense that I compare a feeling to something else other than my own work. And I like to improve my own work from each knife, really. Maybe not each knife, but each batch of knives or each new model. I like to make small improvements, being aesthetical or technical. So every time that I'm able to just make 1% or 1/1000% improvement, I will do that. I will take every step needed to make small improvements. But I always gauge my work against my previous work. Is this better? Is it worse? If it's worse, it's all over. If it's better, it's a good day. This is where the majority of my passion lies. Building one custom at a time. Scaling that up to the size of the Aros project, where we recently built number 500 something. is just a whole different feeling. It requires the same level or even a higher level of tolerances to build the arrows, because every single part in some way needs to be interchangeable. You can't do individual fitting when you're talking scale production like the arrows. Whereas with a project like the Sonic, this is where I can really take my time and dive into every last detail of production or manufacturing of the parts. I can dive into just finishing a small imperfection in the handle by stoning it by hand. I can take my time to dive into my craft in a whole different level that I'm able to do with a production where you have a higher number of output. So at this point, the lock has been fitted on this sample of the Sonic. I'm just going to install the orange scale on this just to have the right feel of the knife. There's still a ton of work that needs done. I need to grind the blades, I need to finish the blade. Every single part needs to be finished to its final look. It needs to be tumbled, bead blasted, colored. The scales needs to be bead blasted, oiled, hand sanded, what have you. But for me, each knife reaches a level once I fitted the lock. It's still really not a knife. The blade is full stock, so it wouldn't cut anything, but it starts to feel like a knife once I've done a test assemble and the lock has been fitted. This is where parts turn into products, if you will, or this is where random metal and fiber parts turn into a knife. And there you have it. The Sonic is in full motion. All these knives are by now, when you look at this episode, all finished. Now it's time for you to go in and order your custom Sonic by clicking the link below. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. I so much love working on the Sonic. Leave me a comment, tell a friend, help this channel to grow, and until next time, see you later.